Alright folks, Big Daddy Cool here coming at you on a Sunday, late Sunday morning here in early February, and today we're going to be walking you through the process of doing some baby back ribs on the smoker. Now, ribs are just about everybody's favorite thing to put on the barbecue, the grill, the smoker, the pit, whatever you want to call it. We're here in Northeast Texas, and for me, I have a lot of different ways that I like to do ribs, and there's really no wrong way to do it as long as you take your time over low heat and do it slow and low. Whether to sauce it or not to sauce it is up to you. The Kansas City way of doing things obviously is to baste it with sauce at the end. We're going to do a variation on that today. We're going to do what I'm going to call a Texas style rib, and what that's going to consist of is there's going to be a lot of garlic, salt, and pepper in the rub. We're going to do it over this Texas beef blend pellet that we're going to do on our Yoder smoker today. Traeger just come out with one called Texas beef. That has oak, mesquite, and pecan blended in it. I'm also going to blend in a little bit of extra oak on my Yoder smoker. So we're going to have that as the predominant smoke flavor that's going to go on this today. And we're doing loin back ribs, or as people call them, baby back ribs. And I've already got two racks already ready and prepared and ready to go ahead and get the rub on. But one of the first things that you got to know about doing ribs of any kind, whether you're doing a St. Louis style spare rib or you're doing a loin back, if you really want to get good flavor on both sides of the rib, you've got to get on the bone underside, you've got to get this what they call silver skin, or this membrane off of the ribs. Now, a lot of restaurants you go to, they're there, but the thing about it is the flavor and the rub can't penetrate this unless you score it, and it's not hard to take off. So I'm going to kind of walk you through that real quick if you've never done it before. And I'll tell you the easiest way to do it is to have your good dry paper towel ready. And you want to go ahead and rinse these ribs off when they come out of the package, and then dry them up a little bit. And then on the very back, you can take your knife, a butter knife works better, or even the bottom of a spoon, and work between the bone until you get the silver skin just to pick up enough to kind of get your finger underneath it until you work it loose. And then it's going to be slippery, so what I recommend is once you work that membrane loose, go ahead and grab it with the end of the paper towel and just pull it straight off. And that's all there is to it. Discard that, it's not good for anything. Now you can leave it on there, it's edible, but it's going to be a little bit tough. And then the next thing I'm going to do, if this was a competition style rib that we were doing, I do a lot of extra trimming, evening up on the ends. We're not going to bother with a lot of that because we're going to eat these. We just want them to taste good. But there is a little extra flap of skin sometimes on the bottom side. You can see right there, that's real thin. That's going to end up burning before the rest of it's cooked, so we're going to get rid of that. And I've already done that on the others. If you'll notice down on the end of your ribs, you'll have sometimes a little flap of meat. Again, might as well get rid of that because it's just going to burn. Already done. And the rest of it, just kind of take a good look at the rest of your rib, whether it be baby backs. Now, the baby backs are a little more tender. They've got a thick ridge of meat that sits up here on the top of the bone. They're a shorter rib, and they don't have quite as much fat inside the meat as far as the striations of fat going through the muscle as, say, a St. Louis style does. But if you cook them slow and low, they're fantastic. I really don't have a preference. I like St. Louis style. I like baby backs. The baby backs typically are going to be a shorter, thicker rib. And most of the time when you go to restaurants, you're going to find a St. Louis style rib. That's the most popular rib. So now, what's the next step? Well, we got to get some flavor on these bad boys because they don't come salted already. So again, up to you on how you want to do that. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to take these ribs and I'm going to lay them meat side down. And like I said, I've already got these other two ready. There's a little bone fragment. We're going to get rid of that dude right there. Alright, so we've got them all ready to go. So, you might want a binder on there. You don't have to do this. You can use just about anything you want. We're going to put a little bit of olive oil, or you can do mustard. I'm just going to kind of drizzle a little bit of olive oil, just enough to wet the surface of the meat. Because what we're wanting to do, and then just rub that in. What we're wanting to do is just give something for that rub and that seasoning to bind to. Now, once we season these, we're going to let them set up for a little while, maybe an hour or two. Let that rub kind of get into the rib itself, and it'll pull out some of the moisture. So I'm going to go over a few products with you here today that we're going to use and a few that we may not. And we've got some other products we're going to do. We're also going to do some country style ribs, and we'll get into that in just a minute. And at the same time, we're also going to put on a good old California tri-tip on the smoker. All these are going to cook about the same amount of time at about 240 degrees. Okay? We'll get into the smoking part of it later. Now, one of the best all-purpose rubs I found is this Killer Hogs barbecue, and it's simply called the barbecue rub. You'll notice it's very red. It's got a lot of paprika in it, garlic, salt, pepper, sugar. Probably has some onion powder in it. What else has it got in here? It's got some chili powder in it. You're going to find a variation of these in just about any rub. You can make your own. It can be as simple as salt and pepper. We're going to do a two-stage rub, but we're going to have a heavy influence of pepper, garlic, and salt because I want these to be more of a Texas style. Almost think about brisket, but on a pork rib. So the nice thing about this, if you're doing a St. Louis, a Memphis style rib, and you really want that red mahogany color to come through, you start out with this right here. So the first thing we're going to do though, there's a brand that I've talked about before. It's called Suckle Busters. This is a Texas product from a barbecue team out of Coppell, Texas. This is simply their salt, pepper, and garlic rub. It's a very coarse granulation, so it's really good, particularly great on beef. But we're going to do it on ribs today. So this is going to be our first layer. And don't be afraid to be liberal with this, because remember, this is going to be on the smoker about 5 or 6 hours. And what we're trying to do is just build a crust of flavor on the outside. It will penetrate inside the meat a little bit, so don't be afraid to use a lot of this. So let's be liberal with it. So we'll start up here on the bottom side of the rib. Well, you can smell that. You can really smell that garlic in it and that black pepper. So we're going to start out with a nice layer of this. Don't forget to get the ends of the bones, because you want all areas of your meat covered. All right, get this last one going here. All right, since it's kind of coarse, kind of give it just a small pat to kind of get it into that meat and let it stick to some of that oil. Okay, so that's that on that side. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go with the Plowboys Barbecue Bovine Bold. This is a really good rub. These guys are from the Kansas City area, and it's got a lot of black pepper in it. It's got some paprika in it, got some garlic in it, so it's going to really complement this second stage of this rub to go along with this salt, pepper, and garlic that we've got on here. These guys actually won the 2009 American Royal Barbecue. They were the grand champions for ribs. They have a whole line of sauces, a whole line of rubs, and they've got great products. You can find them locally in Texarkana at Dot's Ace Hardware. They've got a fantastic selection. Go online to Amazon or just Google Plowboys Barbecue and you can find it all over the country. They ship it to you. If you don't have it in a store local to you, it's a really good product. So we're going to go ahead and hit a layer of this on here. And again, don't be afraid to be liberal with it. You really want this to get into the meat, because we're trying to build layers of flavor here. And again, if you didn't take that membrane off, you're almost wasting your rub if you're putting it on there on this bottom side, because it's not going to get into the meat. So I do recommend getting rid of that membrane. This has got a little bit of red pepper in it, which is great with pork, but it's not going to blow you away with heat or spice. And we're going to put something on it as we finish these ribs. So it's going to be, this is kind of a hybrid Texas rib. We are going to sauce this rib, but not with traditional barbecue sauce. We'll get into that in just a minute. All right, so we've got the bottom side done. Now we're going to flip over. You kind of see that nice color that it's already taken on. Okay. Go ahead and get some olive oil back on there again on this side. This is the meat side. And again, this is just to simply bind it. You can use olive oil, peanut oil, heck, even vegetable oil. Most of the time, I'll use just regular old prepared yellow mustard because it sticks really well. Take that hand again, rub it in real good. Get it spread all over the whole rack of ribs. Okay, keep our hands off a little bit here. And again, same process as before. We're going to start with the sulfur busters, salt, pepper, garlic. Again, be liberal with it. And this stuff smells really good. I used it on a brisket last week, along with a couple other things, and it was probably one of the best briskets I've ever done. You know, folks, when it comes to barbecuing in your backyard and you're not doing a competition, you're cooking for taste and flavor. Appearance is secondary, so don't worry about evening up the ends of these ribs. All right, layer one's on. And that pepper will get to you. Sorry about that. Again, the bovine bold. Put it on there. And we've already got the ends from the other side, so we don't have to worry about that. And again, you don't have to buy your rub. You can make your own. Salt, pepper, paprika, garlic salt, onion powder, ancho chili powder. You can build your own flavor profile. I recommend whatever your rub is, particularly if you're doing pork, you want to have some red pepper and definitely some type of sugar involved in it, because you do want to build a crust and a caramelization that's going to happen on there. Okay. Alright, so we've got those. We're going to let these set up for a little bit. Just going to put them, transfer them over here to the little aluminum pan that we've got. We're just going to kind of let those hang out over here on the side. Alright, now then, just for kicks, we're going to throw in some country style ribs. Now, it's a misnomer that the country style rib is actually a rib. All the country style rib is, I call it a poor man's rib. You can get these in just about any grocery store. I mean, this whole package is almost 5 pounds, and it was $10.25. And really all that it is it's your pork butt that's been sliced. Some of them will have bones. Some of them, they'll have a lot of fat in them, which is good for cooking slow. We can break that fat down. And we're going to treat these the same way that we treated our baby backs over here. So we're going to hit them. Tell you what, we'll even do these a little different since we're cooking a different meat. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Since we're cooking a different meat, we're going to do these more of a traditional Memphis, Kansas City style rub, which means I've got the Smoking Guns Barbecue Sweet Heat. Smoking Guns Barbecue is one of the most widely used rubs out on the barbecue circuit with all the pitmasters out there. These guys actually have a restaurant in Kansas City. I've been there. They've won world champion ribs. They won the Jack Daniels way back in the day, like in 1999, which is one of the premier. It's the Jack Daniels Invitational. You have to actually be invited to even participate in that, and they won best ribs. They're also famous for their burnt ends. But this is their Sweet Heat. It's got a little bit of brown sugar, salt, chili powder, dehydrated garlic, and onion. So really good. We're going to start with this, and then we're going to finish it with the barbecue rub from Killer Hogs. Again, I'm going to do these a little different. If you ever watch Kansas City style, they don't really put a binder on here. The ribs are wet enough, so we're just going to go ahead and start with this now. Sweet Heat. Again, be liberal with it. These are big, thick pieces of meat. You want that flavor to penetrate all the way through. I may not have enough here. That's okay though. A lot of fat in there. These may cook a little bit quicker. These may only take about 3 to 4 hours to cook. There's no bone in any of these. So that makes a difference in cook time as well. and you got a boneless piece of meat and it's not connected to a bunch of other pieces of meat, they will cook a little bit quicker. So keep an eye on your country style. They're not going to take as long, but they are good. Basically, this is the same meat that they make pulled pork barbecue from. If you ever heard of pulled pork, it's coming out of a pork butt or pork shoulder, as they call it. These are basically slices out of that same big cut of meat, and that's what they call country style ribs. This is a cheaper cut of meat, but the nice thing about cooking low and slow is you can take a cheaper cut of meat and you can still make it really good because you've got time on your side. That heat and that smoke's going to tenderize it. All right, now let's go ahead and hit that with some of this killer hogs. It's a brand new bottle. Go ahead and get the cap off of it. As you'll see, I'm sporting my Texas Tech Red Raider shirt today in honor of my son Blake, who's going to be graduating from Tech this year, so get your guns up. Get that out of the way. Oh, man, that's a fantastic aroma coming off of that. Okay, so now here's our second layer of the killer hogs. You can see it's got a lot of paprika in it. It's really going to give this a rich, as it caramelizes, it's going to pick up that beautiful mahogany color that we're going to be looking for. It's so pretty, I'm tempted to go ahead and add a layer of that to our others, but I'm going to keep that simple and straightforward. I think that's the real difference in Texas barbecue versus a lot of others. It's simpler, it's more straightforward, it's more about the flavor, and it's really usually about beef. But if you've ever been to Central Texas, you can get some great ribs at Lockhart and Salt Lick and places like that. The difference is they salt and pepper them, cook them over oak, usually post oak or white oak as we would call it. Alright, forget to get those ends. Ooh, man, these are going to be good. Okay, so now we got that done. Go ahead and get these on the sheet. We'll let them hang out for a little bit. Again, you want to let the rub sit into the meat before you put it on the smoker. The other thing you want to do when you're putting meat on the smoker, if it's been in the refrigerator, you want to let that come up to room temperature. Excuse me one second. You want to let that come up to room temperature before you hit it on your grill or your smoker. Makes a difference in the process. Okay, so let's get this out of the way. Now, for a little bit of beef, we're going to do some tri-tips. Wasn't planning on these. You can't get tri-tips here in Northeast Texas very often. Most of the butchers around here simply don't cut them. But we have some today. I actually got a couple of them, and these are fantastic. And get them out here and we'll talk about what is a tri-tip. A lot of people in East Texas have probably heard of them and don't necessarily know what they are. Tri-tip, of course, it's beef, and you can see why they call it a tri-tip. It's got a triangular cut. It's got 3 tips on it. All right. It's got wonderful marbling and striations of fat going all the way through it. You can really see the grain in this meat. This particular one is even better than that one. Again, we're going to cook these a little different than brisket, though. You handle these almost like a steak in terms of the internal temperature of the meat. So we're going to be shooting for about 145 degrees when we pull these. And based on 250 degrees, we should have these ready in about 3 to 4 hours. And simply after that, you can just slice it and make sandwiches. You can treat it just like brisket. We're going to put some savory seasoning on this. And again, it's nothing that's real complicated. But again, we're going to start out with a little bit of olive oil. Get that all over that meat. Okay, so with beef, what you're going to be looking for, again, is salt, pepper, and garlic are the best seasonings for just about any type of beef. So, we're going to start with this suckle buster, salt, pepper, and garlic. Again, we're going to be liberal with it because we're trying to build a nice layer of flavor. It's not going to be in there long enough to necessarily build up a lot of bark. This is not as tough as a piece of meat as a brisket is. It doesn't need as long to cook. Of course, it's smaller. Again, deliver with it. The other thing we're going to do, Dizzy Pig Barbecue Company Red Eye Express. This is a coffee-infused barbecue rub, which goes fantastic with any type of beef dish. Steaks, you can use this when you're grilling steaks, certainly briskets. It's got, here, I'll just give you some ideas of what all it's got in it. Sugar, salt, coffee, paprika, garlic, a little black pepper. And again, this is going to go on top of this other. And when you open it up, you can smell the coffee in there. So we're going to go ahead and hit that. This is really going to make it a nice, really savory flavor. And you won't necessarily taste coffee. If you're not a coffee lover, don't worry about that. When it melds with the rest of these spices, it's going to have a whole different characteristic. Really, what it's going to do, it's going to intensify this beef flavor. What I love about any type of beef dish is you don't need to mask the flavors. You want to really accentuate and bring out the natural beef flavor. One of the things we're going to do the last hour that this is cooking, we're going to put this in foil. We're going to put a little bit of my Butcher's Barbecue prime dust injection. We're going to make a broth with that and put a little bit of that liquid in here so it'll kind of braise that last hour that it's cooking. That's going to help, again, meld and intensify the barbecue flavors. Alright, let's go ahead and get this other side. We're getting close to getting that smoker ready to go, guys. Again, a little bit of olive oil. Get it rubbed in. Yeah, and we're picking up a little bit of that other rub that's on our table here on the foil, but that's okay. Salt, pepper, garlic from Suckle Busters. Again, you can get this online. If you're in Texarkana, Dots Ace Hardware is your spot to get this. They carry just about the whole line of products from Texas Suckle Busters. Again, don't forget the ends and the sides. Okay. Going with our Red Eye Express, the coffee infused rub. This is it's a little bit coarse, which is fine for beef. Okay. I'll tell you what, the spices alone are almost good enough to eat. Now, one of the ways I'm going to serve this tri-tip is I've made a creamy horseradish sauce, kind of like you'd eat with prime rib. And it's a real simple mayonnaise, sour cream, lemon juice, black pepper, and of course prepared horseradish. And it makes a wonderful dip too, by the way. If you've never had your brisket with a horseradish sauce, you want something different than just barbecue sauce, that's a really nice way to change things up a little bit. So, we've got all our meat rubbed down. We're going to let it set up for about 30 or 40 minutes when we get our smoker up to temperature and get it ready, and then we'll put everything on. We'll come back to you and talk about that. Now, something I didn't mention again is we're going to finish something different on these ribs, and one of the things we're going to do, we've got a product called Texas Rib Candy. This is an apple habanero, and this is really a glaze or a sauce, if you will, that we're going to lightly put on the ribs for about the last hour that they're cooking. This is going to add some sweet, a little bit of heat. Basically, it's just sugar, apple juice, habaneros, vinegar, and pectin. The guy that does this is, his name is Craig Sherry. He's here from Texas. He has a company called Texas Pepper Jelly. You can go to his website, texaspepperjelly.com. He's got all kinds of flavored, like jalapeno jelly, and he's got all kinds of barbecue sauces. But this guy is also out on the barbecue competition circuit. He's won several awards. This is the first time that I've used the apple habanero. This is his original. I've used the cranberry peach habanero, and it was fantastic. So I'm really excited to get this on these ribs. Now, something else I'm going to be doing, we're not going to do the 3-2-1 method, which is 3 hours on smoke, 2 hours in foil, and then open back up again. We're going to be doing these as a straight cook. We're going to go in after the first hour and a half, and we're going to spritz them with apple juice to keep some moisture content on them. We want to build a lot of smoke flavor. We want to build a nice, decent bark and a lot of mahogany flavor, or color rather, on these ribs. I don't want a rib that when I pick up, the meat falls off the bone. That is not what you're shooting for when you're cooking ribs. You want that meat to be tender, but you want it to stay on the bone when you pick it up, and when you bite into it, it cleanly, easily comes away from the bone. As Myron Mixon likes to say on Barbecue Pitmasters, he likes meat with a handle on it, or food with a handle on it, and that's what you got with a rib. But if you do the 3-2-1 method and you leave it in that foil too long, yeah, it's going to be tender, and it's going to fall off the bone, which means you're going to be eating your ribs with a fork. And I don't know about where you come from, but that's not how you eat ribs. All right, so we've got all our rubs on all our food. We're going to get the smoker ready. We'll show you a picture of that when we get that on, and thank you for joining us today, and we'll come back to you here shortly. All right, folks, now we get the smoker coming up to temperature right now. We're going to be using the Yoder Smoker's ys640 pellet grill. If you're not familiar with these, it's similar to the Traegers and the Pellet Pros and things like that are out there. What's unique about the Yoder, made in Wichita, Kansas, and it is a very heavy gauge steel. You can see with the counterweight up on top of the smoking chamber lid, so it's built to last. It's a much heavier gauge steel than most of your pellet grills that are on the market. It's got a hopper over there on the side that you see that we fill with our pellets. And inside I have a Genuine Jerry retrofit. It's a metal plate that fits above the fire pot that I actually put another piece of actual wood. I've got a piece of oak in there right now. It's actually about a 8-inch long piece of wood, just like you would put in a smoker. And what happens is the fire that comes off of that fire pot that's firing those pellets will start heating up that cast plate that's sitting in there, and it's got a log on it. It will start to smolder, and it will help intensify the smoke flavor that goes into your food. My only complaint about pellet smokers is, even though they're convenient and really easy to use, is that if you use pellets alone, for my taste, they don't put enough smoke flavor into the food. So I want to enhance that. So we're going to go ahead and have the pellets in there, and then we're also going to have another stick of oak. And that stick of oak that I've got in there at 240 degrees will give me enough smoke, and probably for about a 4 to 6 hour smoke. A lot of that depends on the ambient temperature outside and how hard the grill has to work to maintain its temperature. Shouldn't be a problem today. We're in the low 70s, high humidity day. So anyway, we got it coming up to temperature. We'll be putting the meat on here in just a few minutes. All right, folks, we've got our smoker up to temperature now. We're sitting at about 252 degrees. We're going to try to keep it around 240 to 250. Of course, when we put this meat in here, it's going to bring the temperature down a little bit. So if it gets up a little bit to begin with, that's okay. Just watch it, even if you're using a standard firebox smoker. Nice thing about the Yoder, it's got a thermostatic control system. It's going to get it in line pretty quick. So that's what I really like about this system. So let's go ahead and get our meat on. See, we got smoke rolling off of this dude. And we're going to put the ribs here on the top rack. We'll put the tri-tip down on the bottom. We'll go ahead and get those ready. And you always cook with the bone side down. Another nice thing about the Yoder is you don't have too many hot spots in it. So everything's pretty consistent throughout. Okay? Go ahead. I'm going to use barbecue gloves for this, but I'm not patient enough for them. Alright? Now we're going to go ahead and get our tri-tips on. Put them back here. They've been soaking up all of the rub and getting marinated and all that. And then we're going to throw on our country style ribs. And we're just going to run these on the bottom here. A couple on the bottom, a couple on the top. And the rest is just letting it go, folks. Just let it go. Come out. We're going to come out here in about an hour and a half, and we're going to check for color on the ribs. And then we're going to gonna start spritzing them. We got a half and half blend of apple cider vinegar and apple juice, and we're gonna start spritzing these things. That's gonna, like I said, we're not gonna wrap them, and that's gonna give them some caramelization, help them with color, and of course it'll build a little bit of sweetness into it as well. So apple juice, apple cider vinegar, a combination of both. We're not gonna do any of that to the tri-tip. We're gonna let it take on the smoke, and like I said, about the last hour, if it's good, it's gonna be wrapped with a little bit of prime dust injection, not injected in the meat, just kind of for it to braise in. It's gonna help it intensify that beef flavor and come on good. So we're gonna get this thing closed back up so the temperature can recover. And then leave it alone, because you know what they say, if you're looking, you're not cooking. All right, Big Daddy Cool and the Yoder smoker. We got the ribs on. It's gonna be some good eating here tonight. Thanks for watching, and we'll show you the finished product.